Here's the answer to today's CenturyLink question of the day. If you didn't win, don't worry. We'll do it again on the next Morning Scramble.
Welcome back, everybody. Okay, congratulations to Tom McCauley because you knew the answer and you are getting 2 tickets to see Boz Scaggs and Michael McDonald appearing at Celebrity Theater September 27th. Congratulations, way to go. Okay, we're talking diabetes this morning, what you may or may not know about this. And there's a wonderful walk coming up that's benefiting the JDRF on November 5th, so we're going to hear about that. Joining us this morning is Dr. Joan Bailey. Good morning.
Yes, good morning.
So now you are in the field of diabetes.
Yes.
And give us an overview. I thought I understood what diabetes is, but I'm not quite sure. Fill us in.
I'd be glad to. Diabetes is a very complicated disease. It has 2 major types, type 1 and type 2. And type 2 is what we feel most experts are saying is in an epidemic that correlates with the epidemic of obesity that we're seeing in the United States. And type 1 is distinctly different than type 2, even though they're both diabetes, in that they lead to high blood sugars, but from very different reasons. Type 1 is what we call an autoimmune disease, where your immune system inappropriately attacks and destroys your pancreas, the organ that makes insulin that controls our blood sugars. And you inherit the genetic tendency toward diabetes for this autoimmunity, but then there's something secondarily in the environment that turns on those genes and then begins the destructive process. And these patients typically present in younger years, but can be as old as 40. They are always treated with insulin. A type 2 diabetic is typically seen in an older individual, but unfortunately, with increased obesity being seen in children, type 2 diabetes is being diagnosed younger and younger. And it is often...
How young?
Oh, it can be seen in 10, 12-year-old children.
Wow.
And depending on their genetic history and their weight and relative inactivity. And type 2s can be treated with diet and exercise first and foremost, which is very important. And then there are myriad of pills that we can treat with diabetes, injectable medications, and then ultimately potentially insulin.
I had no idea, first of all, that it was autoimmune. I had an idea that obesity was leading to the type 2.
Yes.
But how young, when you say the children getting this type 1, how young is young?
It can be literally a matter of days, shortly after
Really?
birth, 6 months, year, but typically, I would say for the most part, around 10 to puberty time frame, but it can be diagnosed at any age.
And what are some of the signs and symptoms to look for if somebody may be contracting this disease for 1 and 2? What do you look
Sure.
for?
The signs and symptoms are similar because both of them lead to high blood sugars. And so the signs and symptoms of high blood sugar can be something as simple as increased thirst, particularly in children bedwetting when they've maybe been potty trained previously and then start to have accidents at night. But increased thirst, increased amount of urination.
So wait, when you say the bedwetting, so going back, so let's say the child is potty trained by 2, 3, so is this taking place at 8, 9?
Could be.
It
I mean,
could
it's a
be?
variable age group.
Okay,
but let's
so
say
increased.
they potty trained at 2 or 3, and then between 3 and 4 they start wetting
Okay.
their bed. So that can be a sign and symptom of it. Increased thirst, increased urination, loss of weight, unexplained loss of weight, blurred vision, an uncontrollable appetite, where they eat a lot but yet aren't gaining weight.
Losing weight.
Yes. And then in later stages, when their insulin production is near gone, they can develop what's called diabetic ketoacidosis,
What's
where
that?
your body utilizes sugar and insulin. If you don't have enough insulin around and you can't process the glucose or sugar in your blood, then your body turns to protein breakdown for alternative source of fuel. And when protein is broken down, then ketones are developed. And ketones are a metabolic byproduct of protein breakdown, and they can act like acid in your blood. And so your pH of your blood goes down and you can get really, really sick. And the signs of that are shortness of breath and nausea, vomiting. And that can lead to an acute hospitalization, and oftentimes the first sign of a diabetic being diagnosed with a type 1 diabetic. So they end up in the hospital, started on intravenous insulin, and then subsequently discharged home on insulin.
When you're talking about, I had no idea. This is shocking to me because, like we were saying, it's like I thought I knew a little bit about it, but
Sure.
I had no idea the extremes of this.
Sure.
And I was thinking back to my uncle on my father's side, where he was diabetic, and he had a sore on his foot, and it wouldn't go away. And then I think of Ron Santo, who lost both of his legs. So what at that point did he have the acid that you're talking about, or the extreme protein?
No, typically in that setting, what happens is diabetic patients can lead to having complications of various important organ systems, one of which is our circulation and nerve function. And so typically when a patient has problems with their legs, it's a combination of nerve damage as well as circulatory damage. And so a patient can have just a simple injury to their leg and they cannot heal it because they, number one, can't get enough blood flow to their wound to heal it. And also they may not know it's there until later stages if they're not observing and watching their legs, watching their feet. And they can get sicker because of that, because they catch it at later stages. They also cannot fight infection as normally as a
Because the immune system,
non-diabetic.
autoimmune system's down.
Right. Well, when your sugars run high, your white cells that fight infection don't work as efficiently,
Okay.
and so infections can get out of control real easily. So the primary issue, particularly in lower extremity issues, circulatory and nerve function, is prevention. Is teaching a patient how to look at their feet and catch things early and take care of their feet and their skin, so and avoid injury as much as possible, or if they do have an injury, catch it early and work to healing it earlier.
Okay. And I know there's a walk coming up November 5th.
Yes.
To spread the awareness and also raise some funds to keep working towards a cure for this. I think we have some video footage of some walks from prior years, if we can
Okay,
take
great.
a look here. Now, I understand that this walk was originally taking place in Tempe, but now it's also expanded to Wet and Wild over in Glendale.
In Glendale, absolutely.
And do you know how many participants you're planning on having?
I truly don't, but it's always very popular and a nice outcome. It's a lot of fun as well as a wonderful event in trying to raise money for this very important disease and putting in research. Between type 1 and type 2, type 1 is potentially the much more curable disease, and patients often ask me in their lifetime, in my lifetime, do I believe that a cure will be found? And I do believe that in my lifetime a cure will be found for type 1 diabetes in particular.
Oh, that would be great.
Yes.
And I was reading somewhere too that if you catch type 1 early on, that hopefully it won't be as bad. I mean, you can really maintain it and control it versus if it just got way out of hand.
I've been an endocrinologist for 18 years, and that was one of the things that drove me to this particular specialty, is that I think there's a lot of potential for prevention. I spend a lot of time with patients. I spend a lot of time educating and motivating patients because I only see them about 15 minutes every 3 months, and there's a lot of time in between that obviously they need to self-manage. And so I think if you can catch someone early on, educate them, give them the information that they need to modify this disease, because they have to think about it every day. They
Right.
have to think about it several times a day. That's one of the challenges of this disease, is that it is unlike with smoking cessation, where you choose or you can quit smoking. With diabetes, everyone has to eat to survive.
Right.
And so good nutrition is very important, and they have to think about this disease every time
Right.
they attempt to eat.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you at home, please support the event November 5th and go to the website. And we'll be right back after this.